Muy buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy en nuestro webinar Conozca al embajador del Reino de los Países Bajos, el señor Ernst Noorman. Mi nombre es Laura Ardila, yo soy la PR Manager de Holland House, Colombia. Tenemos un chat habilitado donde pueden colocar sus preguntas que van a ser respondidas al final de este webinar. Este webinar va a ser en inglés. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar Meet our Ambassador Ernst Noorman. I'm Laura Ardila, PR Manager for Holland House, Colombia. Our webinar is going to be in English, as all you know. First, we would like to thank you all for accepting this important invitation. I'm also inviting you all to write down your questions through the chat. We will choose some questions at the end of the webinar that will be answered by our ambassador. I will first like to introduce you our chairman, Peter Snagenbos.
Good morning, everybody. Very welcome in this webinar from Holland House in name of the Board of Directors. Happily, I think most of the members of the Board of Directors are present in this webinar. Or members from Curacao, from Santa Marta, and from Bogota area. Of course, also welcome in name of the director and his team from Holland House. First of all, a very warm welcome to our new ambassador, Erik Noorman, who arrived about a week ago. I think this morning he can enjoy the beautiful weather, sunshine in Bogota, but we can promise him that this is not guaranteed every day for the next years here in Bogota. It's of course a given fact that every 3 or 4 years our diplomatic staff of the embassy changes. And even in the relative short existence of Holland House, this is the second time that we may introduce a new ambassador. Why does it matter for Holland House a new ambassador? Well, let us explain that the success of the operations of Holland House is mainly for a major part depending of the good cooperation between the embassy and Holland House. The success of Holland House is as well the success of the embassy and reverse. The activities and the interests of both parties, both the embassy and Holland House, are not strictly separated. We have a large gray area in where we both work in similar areas, overlapping each other. And it requires really a good cooperation from both sides to be successful in this gray area. And of course, you must be willing to grant each other success. And the success of the operation goes to both parties. So we are in the privileged situation that we had in the last years, a very close relation with the embassy in many levels. And we're really looking forward to extend these relations in the future. And that's why a new ambassador matters to us for a lot. So we're looking to know the new ambassador better, to show him Colombia, but most important, I think we wish him that he will have some very good years coming in Colombia. Thank you very much. Back to Laura.
Thank you very much, Peter. Now I would like to present you our director, Jan-Willem van Bokhoven.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Peter, for your introduction. Welcome, everybody. Good morning for some, good afternoon for others. I'm very happy that you have joined today. I think you cannot all see the people that have joined today, but we have a very big group of companies that have joined, Dutch companies based in Colombia, Colombian companies based in the Kingdom, on Curacao, Aruba, the Netherlands. So a very diverse group. We have the multinationals joining. I just quickly took a look. I see people from KLM. I see people from Vopak. I see we have people from also many of the SMEs that in the past years established themselves in Colombia, like Sana Commerce or like Tribu. So we have a very nice audience today. Thank you all for joining. Peter already explained very well why this webinar is so important to us, for me, for our team, and of course for the board of directors of the Holland House. What I have done in the past days is, because we want to get to know our ambassador a bit more. We are very happy, Mr. Noorman, that you arrived to Colombia, that you have arrived well. Today, we want to get to know you a bit better. So what I have done is talk to a lot of members in the past days and ask them, what would you like to ask the ambassador? If you would have to choose one question, what would you ask him? That's what I've done. So I have a list of questions I'm going to ask our ambassador today. Hopefully he is going to answer them all. At the end, we have some time left probably, because we want to take this webinar precisely 1 hour. And there's maybe some time left. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to write them down in the chat. And then I will take a look in the meanwhile and see if I can ask some of them at the end. Ambassador, welcome. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Jan Willem. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm really glad that you invited me on this webinar and that you gave me the opportunity to introduce me to the members. Of course, my preference would have been to meet all of you live in person, but I think given the circumstances of the COVID crisis, this is an excellent opportunity to present myself to you and your members. Well, actually, the two of us have met already last week, and I was really glad to meet you already during the first days in Colombia, because I know that the collaboration between the embassy and the Holland House is so close. So for me, it was a priority to meet you in my first days in Colombia.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Likewise. And I think I would also have preferred to do this personally, to be able to organize a big event with all the members. There's one big advantage, that we have members in Bogota, but also in Medellin, also in Cali, also in Barranquilla, Cartagena, Curaçao, Aruba, companies working from the Netherlands in Colombia. They have been able to join today as well. They probably would have not been able to do so normally. So very happy that also the people from the other cities in Colombia and from the Caribbean parts have also joined today. If you would allow me, I would like to start with some questions to get to know you a bit better. You were ambassador in countries like Afghanistan, like Suriname in the past. A rich diplomatic career, I would say. Before coming to Bogota, where were you located?
Before Bogota, I was working for 2 years in Afghanistan. I must say there are some, on the political side, some similarities or some between Afghanistan and Colombia. Colombia is often taken as an example for Afghanistan, how to approach the peace process, what to learn from Colombia. A lot of experts from Colombia are invited also to teach Afghans, what can you do to achieve a peace agreement. Some of you may know that the peace negotiations with the Taliban just have started since the beginning of September. But on the economic side, there's very little difference, very little in common. Hardly any Dutch company is interested to do business with Afghanistan because it's such an unsafe country. If you look at the travel advice, it's dark red. It's very unsafe. So there was very little to do, unfortunately, on the economic side. And here, of course, it's an intense collaboration between the Dutch companies and Colombian companies, and lots of activities. And I really enjoy that part of my work, actually. And maybe just saying before, indeed, I was in Suriname, which has, of course, very close links with the Netherlands. I would say it has its back to South America and its face towards the Netherlands, even though the previous government wanted it to be otherwise. But I really enjoyed there working with the commercial sector. I organized a lot of events, a lot of networking, connecting companies, Dutch companies with Surinamese companies, helping Dutch companies to overcome issues with the government. So it always gave me a lot of energy, actually, to work in that part of my job.
Thank you. Glad to have you back in South America. I understand that we met last week. You also arrived last week with your family to Bogota. But I understand you actually, the first time you visited Colombia is almost 25 years ago. So you have been here before, is that true?
That's true. It was as a tourist. I must say that before working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I traveled a lot in South America, both in Central America and South America. And at that time, I didn't have the opportunity to come to Colombia because of security reasons. So in 1995, I had the opportunity to visit a friend who worked for the embassy, and I visited her actually in Colombia for about 2 weeks. She was a close friend of mine, by the way, who was killed in a plane accident near Medellin in 1 year later. So it was a very sad incident, which reached the international news as well. But I still had very good memories actually from that time of visiting her and visiting the country and enjoying the tremendous kindness of the Colombian people.
Well, very sad to hear that. On the other hand, 25 years ago, I myself have been here 7 years, and I've seen the country change in the last 7 years, at least in some very important aspects. How has that been for you? I know you've been only here for 2 weeks this time, but when you look back 25 years ago, do you see a big difference? How has that been for you?
Well, it's a bit too short because now I've been only in Bogota. I already enjoyed the Ciclovia, which already existed in 1995. At that time, also enjoyed it, and I went out of the city. But the big major difference is that at that time, I think the vast majority of the country could not be visited by tourists, and now that's a substantial part of the country which is considered safe for tourists. Of course, until the pandemic, the Corona pandemic, lots of Dutch tourists were visiting the country and always returned with very dear memories of Colombia. I mean, I spoke to so many people. Always, if you prepare for your travel to a country, then suddenly lots of people have visited that country, and they, almost without exception, they returned with extra memories. And if they visit more countries in South America, they said Colombia was their best. And it was not to please you or please Colombians at this meeting, but it was true.
I know, for example, also Thomas of the UNA Tours, and of course, the airlines are joining today. Colombia, you already mentioned it, a country with a lot of places to visit. Before coming here, did you already make a list of places you want to visit, maybe as an ambassador, but maybe also as a tourist? Do you have specific places that you have in mind that you would really like to visit?
Well, you know, what I did in preparing to come here is, first of all, to select a car with which I can access most parts of the country. And when I was working in Suriname and Burkina Faso, where I was working as an ambassador as well, I had a roof tent on my car, so I could visit all parts of the country. And this time again, I ordered a roof tent to put on my car. So I hope really to go also to the rural areas, of course, the safe areas, to be able to camp there. But I want to go to the coffee areas. I want to go to the Selva, to the coastal areas. The beautiful part of the Pacific coast, where you have a beautiful national park. I mean, there are so many spots in this country to visit. It's hard to, well, for me, it's impossible to mention them all because I'm still feel like a novice. But it's going to be a great time here to visit large parts of the country.
I completely agree, and I actually understand, and I think this is not that known, but I understand when you had to present your list of countries where you would like to become ambassador, you actually also said, my preference, the country I want to go to is Colombia. So you actually made it very clear on your list of priorities that Colombia was the country you wanted to go to. Of course, we hope that's because of the economic relationship between the countries and because you are going to be the ambassador that helps us to further develop the commercial relationships between the kingdom and Colombia. But I can imagine also the touristic part you mentioned, or the beauty this country also represents, is also very important. But can I say, because that's what I've also seen, you have done a lot of economic work in Suriname, you have worked at RVO as director in the past. Is it also very much your intention to be an ambassador for the companies, the Dutch companies that have joined today, but in a more general sense?
Absolutely. I mean, that's like you said, I've chosen Colombia as a posting. Of course, then you still have to wait and see if that's going to materialize. But I was extremely happy that I could go to Colombia because it was, as you said, on the top of my list. And it's especially also because of the country, because my heart is still in South America, and also because the portfolio of work, both the political side, the peace process, but especially also the economic side. The working on the economic side gives me always a lot of energy to try to help companies to move ahead, to realize business in this country. So that was a really attractive part. And the Holland House was something I knew already way before. It has a strong reputation amongst the diplomats, the Dutch diplomats. So for me, it's also a new experience to work with an institution like the Holland House, to work closely together with the staff of the embassy and the Holland House to see what we can achieve for businesses. I want to mention here also that I worked for the Minister of Home Affairs and Kingdom Relations. I was involved with the constitutional change of the Dutch Antilles. So the companies and the governments on the islands can be assured that my focus will also be on their interests. I will not easily forget them because I worked already also for 4 years with these islands. So I think that will be very useful with my work here as well.
I'm very sure about that. It's actually some of the things that when I came to Colombia 7 years ago, one of the first things that I noticed is the very close relationship that is there between the Caribbean parts of the kingdom, between Aruba, Curacao, particularly, and Colombia in a cultural way, but also, of course, the economic relationship. Very important markets for Colombian products, but also many companies from Curacao and Aruba that have taken the step to Colombia and are very active here today. You will probably get to know them very soon. And I also was going to ask you, how do you see the relationship between Colombia and the Caribbean parts of the kingdom? What do you think, and what do you think we can, in the next years, what we should do, or how do you think we could even make those ties between the Caribbean parts and Colombia even closer? Do you have any specific ideas on that also from your experience in the process a few years ago or several years ago?
Well, what I know right now for Aruba and Curacao and the other islands, it's really challenging times, both because of the corona crisis. The islands are hit very hard because of the fall in tourism. And the tourism is, of course, a very important part of their economy. But on the other side, also the Venezuelan crisis affects the islands directly severely. So there are challenging times for these islands, so they have to work hard also to find other opportunities. I know there is some work already done to see how the supply of food items can be assured also from Colombian side, because in the past it was all coming from Venezuela. The market on the boats in Curacao was all coming from Venezuela, and of course now they have to find alternatives. We have to see how we can also help them with that. But also for companies on Curacao and Aruba, we have to find options for them to do business here and to find ways to increase their business. But especially on the tourism side, of course, this remains a very challenging issue. So they have to see also how they can, if we can contribute to some transition of their economy from mainly tourism to a more wider range of activities. I think that's important. It's of course helping them. I mean, initiatives also have to be taken from their side, from company side, from the government side. But we are of course there to help them in doing that.
Challenging challenging times. I think that's something we have, of course, it's in all our minds at this moment, for the islands, for Colombia, for the Netherlands. And also I can imagine, it's a step back, but I can imagine that for you as an ambassador coming to Colombia, traveling from the Netherlands in these times, it's a different welcome than normally. Normally you would arrive, and then in a country like Colombia, there would be a lot of physical events to present you, like this one would normally be physical. How has that been for you? How have you encountered Colombia after your arrival? Have you felt it very different than the situation in the Netherlands? How has that been for you?
Well, it's indeed, like you said, it's quite different to start a job or take up the position as ambassador now during the COVID times. Normally, the first thing you work on is to create a network. To build up a network, you have to see people in person. You cannot do it only from a screen. You have to build trust. You have to know each other. The chemistry between people cannot just be created through the different screens. How useful the instruments is. I mean, for meetings like this, it's very helpful that we have the technology. So it's indeed quite different from a normal start of a job. But at least, I mean, it applies for everyone, of course. It's not only for me, it's for everyone the same situation. I was already glad that I could come after more or less ending the lockdown in Colombia. So the streets are opening up. I mentioned already the ciclovia. I took part in the ciclovia myself on the first Sunday on a bicycle, and I could see how busy it was on the street. But still, you see that the economy also here is heavily affected. The number of businesses have been closed down. They don't have a strong government, financially such a strong government as we have in the Netherlands, where you see that businesses are being supported, that there's a social security system to help people overcome the crisis. It's a more equal society we have in the Netherlands. So you see on the street much less impact of the COVID crisis than you will see here, where the society is already affected by inequality. And then, of course, the effect of the COVID crisis is much more severe than you will see in the Netherlands.
Correct. And before leaving, I know you have been able to visit some of the Dutch companies that also have activities in Colombia. You were able to visit them in the Netherlands, of course, with all the measures you had to take into account. But I know before coming to Colombia, you have also taken the time to visit some companies in the Netherlands that have activities here from different sectors. We have a few people joining, of course, from the flower industry today, a sector which, of course, unites us, the Netherlands and Colombia. What did you feel during those visits in the Netherlands? What did you see? What did you feel? What did they tell you about Colombia?
Well, yeah, I mean, what is for me amazing is also, I mean, the number of members you have, and that even your membership increased during the past months. So that shows that there's a tremendous interest still to do business with Colombia, and that's what I noticed also during my visits in the Netherlands, from the tiny companies to bigger companies, that they still believe there's potential in doing business with Colombia. It's, I mean, I visited them in the month of August, so the COVID crisis was still full blown going on. But none of them had the feeling that that the business with Colombia is a no-go, or that they would divert their energy to other markets or only to the home market. None of them said that. They still believe there's a good potential in Colombia to continue their work. So these visits were very productive and gave energy also to me, because they believed in their endeavors here in Colombia.
That's good to hear, and that's also, of course, important for us. We have actually, like we talked last week, today the Holland House has a bit more than 260 members. This year alone, about 30 new companies have entered, which makes it a very big group. And I think it's a big group because we have always worked very much together with your staff, being one team between Embassy and Holland House, both with our own strengths and finding complementarity. So that's what I hope we will keep doing. I know you have been an ambassador that we mentioned that has been there for companies in the past. Of course, we will invite you to our events. We hope you will be able to join us as much as you can. Of course, companies sometimes knock on your door when they find specific problems. So when they find unfair competition, or they see that there's a question also in the chat about that they see that the competitors from Asian countries get more support, also maybe financial. But also the question to you, do we only knock on the door in the case of problems, or is there much more you can do for our companies? Is there, can you give us maybe some examples in ways in which you have helped the companies in the other countries where you have been located?
I would say, what I always tell companies, sometimes I noted that companies didn't visit an embassy. And I even went to hotels to see these companies and tell them, please come to visit us. It maybe cost you 1 hour. And if it's not useful to you, then you've lost only 1 hour. But what I've noticed always is that these companies then return time and again to the embassy to get information, because we are there to solve problems, to help to solve problems, especially also with the government, also to help to seek opportunities, to brainstorm with companies on what kind of possibilities are there in a country. In which region could you be active, but also warn them for security in some other parts of the country where you better be very careful or should not be active because of high risk. Especially in the beginning, if a company wants to start a business or wants to seek a partner, we can be very helpful together, I think, here, and especially with you, Jan-Willem, with the Holland House. And one thing we can help companies too is with the instruments from RVO. We have a good overview of what kind of instruments are available, what options are there. So in that sense, we can also help companies with ideas, with potential instruments which can help them in their endeavors here in the country. And we have, of course, a network, both in the government, but also in the private sector. You have a strong network. So I think it's in the context of Bogota in Colombia, it's a collaboration between the two of us. And if a company only comes to us if there's a problem, I think the company is too late. It should already be known to us what they're doing here. And we can already help them before they encounter their problems. We have to avoid that they enter into a problem. And for that reason, it's good for companies to contact us much beforehand already.
Perfect. I think that's also a bit the background of my question. I know you will also be there in case of problems or in case of troubleshooting. But sometimes this can be avoided when we have a very continuous flow of information. In those cases, if they want to tell you and your team more about their company, their activities, and to analyze how you and together with us, how we could support, what would be the normal communication channel? How would you prefer the companies to contact you or your staff?
This also what the company prefers. There's no one size fits all. There's no, if a company comes to the country, they can ask for an appointment. Before coming to Colombia, they can contact us by phone, by email. Now with these meetings with the video, which is often used, they can do that. So we have a large team to help the companies. Of course, my agenda will also be full that I will not be able to address all the questions myself, but fortunately I have a very strong team of 3 expert staff. Also my deputy, Caroline Ramax, is responsible for the economic team, but we have also an agriculture attaché, we have another expat diplomat, and we have 5 excellent local staff members to help the companies in different sectors. So I think we have a good capacity to help companies, but we also will see if we think that the company can maybe be better helped by you, and that we see that, okay, we will suggest that they contact you as well. So it's going to be a close collaboration between you and us in helping companies. But I think it's important that there's not one size fits all, because companies are all different and they have different preferences, and we like to adapt to their wishes.
Perfect, thank you. I think that collaboration will be very important. We have many companies, like you can also see in the chat, many companies asking questions, giving you a warm welcome. And I think also very important what you mentioned, that if you look at the ways we can support, it's of course your staff, our staff, but it's also of course the instruments of the Dutch government, the RVO instruments, the whole support facility that might exist from the Netherlands. And I know that's very important for, for many of the companies, that also Colombia is a priority for the Netherlands. And I think I also, listening to you, I think that will also be a very important role for you to also make sure that Colombia remains a very important priority for the Netherlands. Of course, we also have to make sure that the Netherlands is a priority for Colombia. How do you see that? How do you see, because it's of course a moving picture also in the Netherlands. You already mentioned that the Dutch companies that you spoke to in the Netherlands, that they are here to stay, that they are actually expanding their presence in Colombia. How is that for the Dutch government? How do you see Colombia on the roadmap for the Dutch government for the next years?
Well, if you look at the past couple of years, we've seen a good number of missions coming to Colombia, and especially, of course, also the visit of our Prime Minister with a very large delegation. And that's something we have to build on. Also trying to invite other high-level delegations. By the way, it's not always that the high-level delegation or that the minister is most important to have it in a trade mission. Sometimes small trade missions can be more active for business than the high-level ones. But to make Colombians in the picture also at the political level in the Netherlands, you still need those. In this sense, it's also good to mention that we have a number of priorities where we are proactively organizing activities, especially it's on the water and logistics part. It's on life sciences and health, on agriculture and horticulture, and on circular economy. And in these sectors, we are proactively active in organizing studies. You also took initiatives to do some studies, and we are looking for funding for that. And in that context, and also we try to organize expertise coming over to Colombia, missions in these sectors coming over to Colombia. So, but it's also, you're absolutely right. It's also my duty to lobby in the Netherlands for Colombia, and to make sure it's always on the forefront of people's minds if they think of exploring new markets, and that also the government is supporting that. We have to lobby from our side in The Hague and elsewhere in the Netherlands. But for instance, also a visit of the mayor of Rotterdam, Abu Taleb, who was here also for the connection between the two ports of Cartagena and Rotterdam, both, of course, also linking to the narcotic issue, but also an economic issue, the economic cooperation. These kinds of visits are also very useful. So we will be working on that, lobbying for Colombia in the Netherlands. And Colombia has to do it also themselves, of course. I mean, but I'm already in close contact with the ambassador of Colombia in The Hague. And he will make sure that Colombia also will be, their interests will be well presented in the Netherlands.
Well, I think thank you on behalf of all our members for doing that too. You mentioned also some of the priority sectors that have been defined. You mentioned infrastructure, transport, water, agriculture, horticulture. life science and health, and the sectors related to circular economy. Is there any of them that have your specific, can I say it, your specific personal attention of those sectors? Is there any new sector that you think would also offer a lot of potential for the next years?
I think that, I mean, of course, we've chosen these sectors because we believe all these sectors have potential. Agriculture and horticulture is extremely important in this country, and I think Colombia has still a large potential to increase its food production. And also, of course, as an alternative in the future for farmers who've been working the coca business, agriculture should play an important role in providing alternatives. I'm very eager to work hard on the circular economy, and that's, like you said already, sectors related to circular economy. So it's a wide sector, and it's good to have it also in the back of your mind in all the activities you're doing. How to ensure a kind of circular economy, a sustainable production. So I think it's a challenge also for your members to think along the lines of circular economy. So for me, it's a very interesting topic, and I think there's also a lot of interest on the Colombian side. It's still challenging, but I've seen a lot of signs here on the street already that it plays a role in Colombia. Colombia is known as the country with the biggest biodiversity in the world. And well, you just could have read reports of the reduction in biodiversity in the world, that it's really threatening also humankind. So for that, it's a big asset for Colombia to protect this biodiversity and be in the showcase for the rest of the world. And I hope they take up that challenge. And of course, well, you know, water is in the DNA of the Netherlands. So of course, that's also a sector which is extremely important. We have a long history all around the world in waterworks. But they're also important to show that we can do it in a very responsible way, environmentally responsible way. And I think we have achieved a lot on that. So all these sectors, they have my interest, and I look forward also to visit companies working in these sectors and to learn from their experiences, because that's an important part, I think, of my work also, to go to companies, to see their work in the field. And with that experience, I can also help companies better to start business in Colombia.
Thank you. I think also in line with these sectors' priorities, with which I of course share, I think it's also there in this part. I'm going to mix my questions a bit with some of the questions that have come from the audience that of course is sometimes very well informed. Many of the Dutch companies here, they know very well what is on the roll for a specific period. So for example, for this year, when we started this year in January, of course, we all had our agenda and working plan for this year. And part of that working plan was, of course, a possible visit of President Duque to the Netherlands, and also the signing of the double tax treaty, which is also very important for many Dutch companies that have invested heavily in Colombia. And of course, then the pandemic arrived, and these kind of events have become much more difficult. How do you see that? Is it? Do you think we can keep the question actually is, do you think we can keep that momentum going in the next period?
Well, it's, I mean, of course, we're right now preparing our annual plan for 2021. And if we look back to our annual plan of 2020, of course, well, the influences of COVID has been enormous. And so right now we're also thinking, okay, what will be the situation in 2021? What can we do? What can we not do? I always like to think of scenarios in the sense that, okay, you have a pessimistic scenario, you have a realistic scenario, an optimistic scenario. And along those lines, you can see what can be possible in these different scenarios. because we want to pick up the momentum again and start to continue working. I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, I think the two, together with you, we have done 5 studies to show also that we do not stop working because of the crisis. We have to keep on working, preparing and seeing where there are options. So in case the pandemic is under control, we do not restart at that moment, but we are already up and running and prepared for new activities. Indeed, you mentioned the visit of President Duque to the Netherlands. It has been cancelled recently. Well, for obvious, right now with the second wave of the pandemic in the Netherlands, in Europe, still here the pandemic is a major challenge. So we felt it was not the right moment to organize the visit right now, and we are still looking for a new date for the visit of president. And then, of course, also you have the elections coming up here for the presidential elections. So we have to see what we can do about a new date, but it's still on the agenda. And that's also important, that also from the president's side, there's a still strong wish to come to the Netherlands to pay a visit. At the same time, it's also said that the double taxation treaty should not be dependent on the visit. The work's been done already for quite some time. And if it's ready to be signed, it can be signed. It should not be waiting for a visit of the president. So that's, I think, good news. I cannot say anything on when it can be signed, or if there's still some things outstanding. That's for me I'm still too new in the country to have any details on that. But it will not wait for a high-level visit. If it's ready to be signed, then we're probably going to go ahead with that. And like I said, we're just going to plan now to make sure that the economic activities will be up and running the moment the economy is opening up more and more. And it's going to be happening, I think, step by step. It's not a switch. It's going to be happening step by step.
Thank you. Maybe also good to mention in that strategy that we have also defined together between Embassy and Holland House. You mentioned the 5 studies. And maybe for our members that are not aware, in March, we decided with the Embassy to invest our time in preparing for the future. So to investigate 5 specific sectors, which we think offer a lot of opportunities for new Dutch companies or Dutch companies that are already here to become more active. So at this moment, we are finalizing the 5 studies, which would be maritime technology, renewable energies, urban mobility, circular construction, and the 5th would be biomass from the pork and poultry sector. So those 5 sector studies, they are about to be finalized, then they will be presented and also published. And I think it would be very important for our members to also, of course, be part of the strategy that has been defined. Many of them already are. And also, like our ambassador mentioned, hopefully with that work that has been done, with that investment of mapping and getting the opportunities very clear, the contact network in those sectors even better, I think there's a lot of work that we would like to start when the circumstances allow us to. You also mentioned, apart from these sectors, you also mentioned the importance of the Colombian regions. So not only Bogota, but of course also the rest of the country, also economically. I know the kingdom, of course, has you have your staff, but you also have the honorary consuls in Cali, in Medellin, in Cartagena. Have you already met them?
Yeah, it's good you mentioned them, because I had them also on my list to make sure that that they would be mentioned here as an important part of the network, because indeed they play an important role. I've met 2 of them right now, also through WhatsApp video. So the honorary consuls of Cali and Cartagena. And this afternoon, I will talk to the new honorary consul of Medellin, Quincy Leesauer. So I'll have a call with him, and he will come to visit Bogota in about 2 weeks' time. So then we'll have a meeting in person. But indeed, their role is extremely important also for the economic collaboration. They can be very helpful. They know their region, they know the opportunities, they have their own network. They are usually very practical because they're entrepreneurs themselves. So they're extremely important also if entrepreneurs are interested in activities in their region to make sure you contact them and meet with them. They are of course also extremely important for consular work. That's why they're also called honorary consul, for tourists with issues and difficulties. But a large part of the work is devoted to commercial work, economic development between the Netherlands and Colombia. They're, for me, highly valuable.
Thank you. Well, I think there's actually one question left on my list, and of the list that I made with a lot of our members. And then I have some very short questions from the audience, also some invitations from the audience, because of course there's invitations for you to get to know their companies, their sector in Colombia a bit better. And there's even an invitation for you to be ambassador in Colombia for more than 3 or 4 years. So that's very quick, but that's also good to see. But of course, it's also, I guess it's also because for some Dutch companies, the project timeline to actually get from first contact to government tender to a contract can be a few years. So then it's also important, of course, the continuity of the ambassador. But I think that's rather hard, isn't it, for you to be ambassador for more than 4 years?
Yeah, actually in Afghanistan was only 2 years, and that was because of the security situation there. That for medical reasons, our ministry doesn't want people to stay for more than 2 years, so it's even shorter. But the normal time indeed is 4 years. I mean, the reasoning is that you should still feel a strong connection with the Netherlands and not be too understandable of the local situation. And that can happen if you stay too long in the country. You find it hard to explain the policies of your home country. Well, that's your prime duty as well, to be able to explain that, and that you have a better understanding of the policies of your guest country. So for that reason, it's 4 years. But what's more important is that we always have a good transition between two ambassadors. I met Jeroen also. I have a good dossier from Jeroen. I know what's happening, and I have this very good staff, and it's actually the staff, they ensure the continuity. I'm really impressed with the local staff also at the embassy. They're highly qualified. I know a lot of the companies, a lot of your members are in contact with our local staff, and they ensure also our continuity. There's a big difference if you look at embassies 20 years ago or even longer. You saw only diplomats at policy level, and the local staff could be cleaning drivers or at the most secretary. But right now you see at the high policy level, you see local staff. And I think that's an important development. It's an asset because, like I said, they ensure continuity. And also because, you know, the diplomats, they don't leave at one point in time. Now Caroline, my deputy, and I will not leave in the same year. So there's always overlap, and in that sense, we want to guarantee continuity.
And I think that's very important. And of course, like you mentioned, many of the companies, they have contacts with their expert within the embassy. The embassy is also organized in the economic part by sectors. So there's a very close relationship there. My last question would be, and then I will take a look one more time at the questions in the chat before finishing. My last question would be, Mr. Ambassador, what would you like us to do as Holland House? If you would have to say, organize these types of events, or please focus on these kind of initiatives, what would you like us to do, or where would you like to mention that if you organize these type of events, please count on me? What would be your preference in that sense?
That's not an easy question because I'm such a novice in the country.
I left it for the last question.
And now I would prefer to turn it around. What can I mean for the Holland House and for the members? Because I'm here to serve also your membership. And like I said, if you organize something, you want me to be present, you can count on me. I mean, if it's physically impossible because I'm not in the city or I'm not in the country, of course, then it's not possible. And if the president invites me for something, unfortunately, then also I have to prioritize. But you can count on my participation, on my involvement. And also, I know that once in a while you organize events for your members. And for the next time, then when it will be possible again, given the Corona crisis, I would like to invite you all to the residence and to have a good network event here at the residence for all the members. So that's one invitation you can count on. And we just have to plan when it will be possible, but I'm sure that sometime in the future we are opening up and these events are possible again, because I think that's important also in networking, being together, creating ideas. That happens during these events, and that's a important role you have, bringing people together, helping also new non-members. I mean, we are not, of course, only for the members of the Holland House. We are for all entrepreneurs, both Colombian, to help them to go to the Netherlands, and Dutch and entrepreneurs and from the islands to help them do business here, and also include them in network events if they are there.
Thank you. We have actually quite some non-members joining today. We try to be, and that's also, I think, a big advantage of online events, that we can be much more inclusive. So we have many Dutch companies that not necessarily are a member of the Holland House that have also joined today. And I'm quite sure there's not a member company that would not like to do the next network reception at the residency. So thank you for that. I'm quite sure all our members are very happy to visit or to be able to do the next network event when it's possible again at the residence. I think maybe one last, I follow the chat. There are some questions that are very specific or have not been able to address. Maybe the last question is a good one that just showed up in my chat. And I think that's something important. You will have a lot of contact with government officials, with ministers, with mayors, with governors, with all kinds of state agencies. And I think that is very important for the companies. Many of our companies do business with the Colombian public sector, so their client is the Colombian public sector. And it's very important for them to be able to give input upfront and not only after the meetings. Do you have a specific idea on that, how we could organize that if you would meet a minister or if you would meet the director of SENA, for example, how we could give you input upfront?
What I usually do, I mean, for me, the collaboration with such a strong institution as the Holland House is new, but I see it extremely positive. But what I usually do if I meet with a minister of a certain sector, then I ask also my staff, do you know of any topics which I have to bring up during this meeting with the minister? So if, say, I visit the minister responsible for infrastructure, then I'm sure that I get the information of tenders going on, some issues of a company with the government, and they hopefully are in close contact also with you on these issues. Especially in the beginning, I'm not aware of these issues. I have to learn about these, and I'm sure there are some issues which are already long-standing, going on for sometimes years. But I will be informed and can bring up this issue during these meetings. So always inform myself beforehand. And if I know it's necessary, of course, then I'll often meet with the companies themselves, talk to them, by phone, just get an update. So I'm well informed if I go to a minister. By the way, I've also had plenty of visits to ministers together with companies. because I can help them to open a door, and then for the company it's easier to access the ministry, and I help them to present their issues themselves or their proposals. Sometimes you help them to present a proposal. I've done it time and again also previously in my job to go together to a ministry with a company.
I think that would be greatly appreciated by many of the companies, Mr. Noorman. I think I'm going to finish here. It's been a lot of questions. Of course, you have talked a bit more than myself. I apologize for that. But of course, for our members and the companies that have joined today, it's very important to get to know you a bit better. I think, but they are going to tell me afterwards probably, I think we have been able to do so, to tell them a bit more about you, about the work you have done in the past and the priorities and the way of working you would prefer for the next years. I completely trust that we will have a very good, productive and also pleasant collaboration, and that many of the companies present today and many of the others will benefit from that. There's also a lot of invitations. I'm going to send you a copy of the chat afterwards so you can see all the invitations. If you would maybe a quick last question would be the invitations, for example, of companies that would like to invite you to visit them in the next weeks, of course, with all the measures and all the protocols in place, if you would be willing to do that. That's something hopefully will be possible. Of course, we all have to comply with the circumstances, but hopefully you will be able to accept some of the invitations in the next weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, I just hope, I mean, you don't have to stop me from visiting companies. It's something I really enjoy doing because I learn a lot. And I'm really glad that you mentioned these invitations. Of course, I have to look at the planning and the possibilities. First of all, it's also an important point is I have to present my credentials to the president, but some informal visits I can do already. So I really look forward to accept these invitations. I do not know the number you just mentioned, so how realistic it is that it will be in the coming weeks or the coming months. But rest assured that I look forward to meet all your members in person, and especially at our company. It's great to have them here at the residence, but I always prefer also to go to the companies themselves.
They will for sure very much appreciate it. Thank you very much again, Mr. Noorman. We are going to finish this webinar at 10:02 in the morning in Colombia, another time in the Caribbean parts and in the Netherlands. I'm going back to Laura, but not before thanking you once again for your availability. And I think for the many answers that have been very guiding for us all. For the people joining us, have a good weekend, and back to you, Laura.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor embajador, por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Welcome to Colombia and welcome to Holland House. Thank you all for being with us today. Hope to see you soon and have a wonderful day and weekend. Bye-bye.
Gracias. Ciao.